So I'm doing research on the Warren Occult Museum and this doll. And I have the picture of the doll like right in front of me while I'm taking notes down. And I have my Spotify playing. And so I'm kind of leaning in, taking notes. And all of a sudden I hear a whisper saying, lean in closer. And swear to God, I thought it was this doll. Because once you hear what this doll does, you're like, oh, shit. And then, so I'm about to freak out, right? And then I hear it again. It says, psst, lean in closer. I'm like, and I look at my Spotify, and it was a Pampers commercial.
Why are they telling people to lean in closer about diapers?
I don't know. Why was she whispering? Why was she whispering? It was all uncomfortable.
Coming closer.
I didn't like it.
Warning. The topics discussed on this podcast are subject to adult themes and languages. We seek to unravel the unexplained and unknown. This is Encounters.
Hi everyone and welcome to Encounters. My name is Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
And today we are going to be discussing the Warren Occult Museums.
Ba, ba, ba.
There's a lot of spooky shit, guys, in this fucking museum.
Holy crap.
It is a museum. It's a basement, but it's a museum.
Yeah, the basement of their house, their home.
It's not open. It's not open anymore, unfortunately. Zoning laws. We've talked about this before, but learned a lot more about it today.
Mm-hmm.
After hours of watching different footage of people going in and using their iPhones to capture pictures and video and tons of other shit.
Take selfies with the demons, kids.
I think that was one of the most uncomfortable things for me. I was like, this woman was standing in front of Annabelle. I was like, oh my god, do you both want to get in it? Do you want me to get a picture of you both and then her in the back? Okay. I think she winked at you guys. I was like, fuck that.
But don't get me wrong. If I was in there, I'd be taking selfies too. I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah, get us both with Annabelle. I'd be like posing and shit. Yeah, no, there's no way I would.
For anyone interested in seeing what we've seen, you can find anything that we just saw on YouTube, but you can also pay $5.99 on the Warren website to view their virtual tour.
And we did not do that.
I did not do that.
It seems cool, though.
It seems really cool. I need that $5.99. You can do that, or you can go to YouTube. That's what I did.
I got plenty.
And it's an experience. It was founded in 1952 when they founded Nespar, which we've covered in previous episodes. And it is just like a menagerie of different things that they've gathered throughout life.
Yeah. Some on cases. Some people have sent to them. Some people have sought them out to come and get these things. Like thousands of objects. Well, I don't know, thousands. A lot of objects.
A lot of objects, a lot of dolls, a lot of mannequins that are like dressed in costumes. There's a lot of Ed's paintings from his cases.
Yeah, they got shrunken heads. They've got skulls in there.
Basically, hell is in there.
Yes. I was watching this video. It was Ed, Lorraine, and their son-in-law, Tony. And I mean, they were beating it into our heads. Most haunted place on earth. Like, all these items, they say are like terrifying, demonic, evil, like scary. And they say they don't go down there between, what time was it?
9 and 6, the psychic hours.
Yeah, so from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., they won't go down there. They refuse. They say it's a horrible, horrible place to be.
And after finding some of the specific things that are in there, I would agree.
I would not want to be in there.
Now, we all know, of course, that Annabelle is in there. We've talked about Annabelle here recently, as last week. She's just a very small portion of everything. She's the most evil portion, I think, of everything in there. Upon diving deeper in, Amanda and I kind of found a bunch of different things with a lot of dark past, and we're going to bring them to you today. So, Amanda, tell me about one of the things that freaked you out the most.
For me, the mirror. The Conjuring mirror. I have a thing about mirrors anyway. And it's kind of interesting because they say, kind of like off on the side, but if someone passes away in your house, you're supposed to, cover all the mirrors so the soul can, leave. Open the window so the soul can leave and go to heaven or wherever. It's not surprising they have an evil mirror in this occult museum. And a conjuring mirror is used to kind of summon a spirit or a god or something like that. You're normally conjuring something up to do something for you. So this man, Stephen, had used this conjuring mirror. And he was summoning evil spirit. Well, he was summoning spirits. You can't really, with these kind of things, like the conjuring mirror, you can't pick what spirit comes up. It's going to be whatever spirit responds. So it can be evil or it can be good. And what Stephen would do was use this mirror to do bad things to people, to like get revenge on people and to harm people. But unfortunately, he did something wrong and one of the spirits turned on him and he ended up getting sent to a mental institution. And then the Warrens were contacted to come and collect this mirror. And they say it's very, very dangerous.
It's a pretty mirror.
It really is nice. It's big too.
It is big. I would not want it. I'd like. What's the magic that's used when casting on a mirror such as that?
I think they were using black magic. I don't remember.
Was it black? Was it like crystalmancy?
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's the terminology of witchcraft that's used on surfaces like windshields, mirrors, anything that reflects.
Yeah. And don't do it, guys. You can't control it.
I mean, if you study it, but it's the same kind of concept of stepping into the bathroom and saying Bloody Mary 3 times, I would think, right?
Yeah, but that was the problem is with this kind of magic, like you can't control what spirit comes out.
That's fair.
You could be a good person and you could be trying to do, I don't know why you would do this if you were.
I mean.
So it's just unpredictable. This kind of magic is unpredictable for anyone. So tell me about one of yours favorites.
Oh, one of my favorites?
Yeah.
They have these set of satanic portraits. It's like one of them is a satanic cardinal. Another is of his wife, who is the high priestess. And another is of this woman who is like bare-breasted, horns coming out of her head, just like ready to take on the fucking world. Apparently she was one of the cult members. And these paintings came out of a satanic cult where this couple, the cardinal and the high priestess, were running a temple in their house, and this young woman who is featured was a very prominent member, and then they found out she was a virgin. They sacrificed her to Satan. Someone called the police, and when the police raided the compound, all they found was the poor victim, but the two had fled. They remain uncaught to this day. Ed and Lorraine Warren were called to collect these paintings and things from inside. It's really dark and sordid.
They also have a vampire's coffin. It's just like this coffin there. And I guess this is a modern day vampire. And it was this man who was running around drinking people's blood. And I'm pretty sure he was institutionalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then the Warrens were called to come and collect the coffin that he was using. You have anything else to add to that one?
No.
I hear modern day vampires don't even drink blood anymore. Too many diseases.
I hear that's not true.
Oh, really?
There's a sect in New Orleans that still practices drinking blood.
Well, I'm sure they, find their donors.
Yeah, no. It's a very intimate process. Yeah. It's a coven. It's very much like a coven. In fact, I think that's what it's called. Or a nest.
Oh, yeah. A nest.
I'm sorry.
That's so funny. I bet you're right, but that's so funny. What else is there?
There is an organ.
Yay.
At first, everybody was like, oh, look at this organ. And I was like, why is there an organ in this museum? But apparently, there's a little sign on it that says haunted organ. And when you start digging into some of the old interviews that they give, this organ actually comes from the Reverend Phelps house in Stratford, Connecticut. And it was known from the hauntings of the Stratford rappings. And it's known to play itself at 9 at night. But nobody goes into the museum at 9 at night.
Right.
But apparently, they Ed and Lorraine have gone on record as saying that you could hear the music from their bedroom.
See,
Yeah,
that's
that'd be
the
too
thing.
much.
Yeah, if I heard an organ play by itself, I would move.
Well, and that's the thing to remember. That's one of the reasons why it's down in the museum, is because the organ is associated with the horror and gothic genre, because it comes out of the actual gothic realm. Think of...
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think I heard something about them practicing at night, so it's not surprising it plays at night.
Right.
But organs are scary, like, within themselves. Like, I think
I love an organ.
I think the organ would be in there, even if it wasn't haunted.
The only thing better than an organ is a harpsichord.
I hate you.
What? I love the harpsichord.
Of course you do. Of course you love the harpsichord.
I want a house like the Addams Family. Except not as janky. I want it nice. Clean.
Alright. They have a lot of haunted toys down. Well, not even toys. I say toys. Dolls in this museum as well. And they have these African fertility dolls. And I think there was like 5 or 6 of them. And it said that these dolls were stolen from a witch doctor. And they were stolen from this witch doctor, which was just a bad idea in the first place. But he would use these fertility dolls to already do bad things.
Yeah, one was even covered in blood. Ed stated human blood, but
I think he also said it was used for like dark magic and all that stuff. So someone stole these dolls, and the person mailed it off to their family member in, I think, Connecticut, hoping that they were going to be able to sell them at some like antique shop or something. And right after the guy stole these dolls, he ended up dying a horrible death, like a day or 2 later. And when the family members got this thing, they both became paralyzed, and 2 years later, they ended up dying. And I don't remember if someone else ended up with them, or the Warrens were called in right away, but the Warrens ended up with them.
they also have this section of the museum that's like a little tchotchke shelf filled with trinkets and tokens. And at first it just looks like an assortment of random objects. And then you start to notice that some of them are skulls. And then you start to notice that a lot of them are like satanic things. Like one of them was even a devil coffee cup. Mm-hmm. But all of these items were used in exorcism practices. They were all possessed at one point. And so the vessel remains in the museum.
Mm-hmm. They also have these children's tombstones that were used as altars during satanic rituals, and they have a like quite a bit of these children's tombstones just like stacked.
They even have one that has the name Warren on it, and Ed received it I don't know, in some kind of investigation or whatever, and kept it because it had Warren on it. But eventually the date that the child died would match up with the same day that Ed would die. It was weird.
Yeah.
They also have a hangman's noose.
Is that it?
Yep, that's all I got on that.
Okay, I was waiting.
They got lots of taxidermied animals.
The one thing I thought was crazy was the Halloween mask that they had in there. These cursed masks.
That satanic priests would use in rituals.
Mm-hmm. That's not cool.
Speaking of satanic, Let's move on over to that satanic doll that was discovered at Sandy Hook.
Yeah, this hunter was out in the woods, and he came across this horned doll. Sorry.
Tall, huge, like it's like 7 foot.
Right? It's creepy. And he said right when he saw it, he got a really uneasy feeling about it. And he didn't touch it or anything. He actually decided to walk away and leave. And as he left, he saw a man, like a man with a black coat and a black robe on and a white beard. And he was following the guy. And he was actually in step with the guy. And he said he was just really uncomfortable and wanted to get out of the woods. So he asked the guy, "How do you get out of the woods?" And the guy wouldn't talk to him, the one with the beard. He just pointed, and he pointed him out of the woods. And the Warrens got a hold of it.
Ugh.
No.
Right?
I would not pick up a satanic doll, especially outside of a place like that.
Never. Never in my life. Among everything, they've also got an assortment of voodoo and hoodoo dolls. Multiple that they say have been used to kill people. They've got one that's really freaky in this glass dome that's suspended by a noose.
Oh yeah, the death dolls.
Yeah. Tell us about the death dolls.
Well, just they're pretty much just like voodoo dolls. They're made from a piece of the person who you're trying to curse, and you hang them from trees, and the person will get sick and die. But with these dolls, this woman ended up buying these dolls in an antique shop in Florida, and she said when she brought them home, she already started having a weird feeling about them, and then they would disappear and then reappear a few days later, and she said she started having really, really bad luck. So she got rid of them.
I do not blame her one bit.
Not one tiny bit. That's why you don't buy anything from an antique shop. Dakota.
I buy everything from antique and fucking thrift stores.
I know. You can get some cursed dolls.
No, because you know what? When I see a voodoo doll, I go, you know what? I don't think I want to buy that. I'm good.
Right. I'm good.
My luck, I'm going to fucking find this really beautiful vase and it's going to have a djinn in it.
Right?
That'll be my luck.
That's the truth.
By far, one of the creepiest things that I saw in the museum wasn't Annabelle, but rather another doll that they had on display, which was the Doll of Shadows.
It's creepy looking.
It is terrifying looking. It is this amalgamation of human bones, animal parts, nails, crow feathers, and like teeth. And it actually is in the shape of a Victorian doll. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind it is that you take a picture of a doll, write your curse on the back of the card, and send it to someone. Then someone gets it and looks at it. And through the power of mental state and entering your dream state and mental psychosis, this doll is able to terrify you to death. There have been cases where even reports of people's hearts being stopped and pictures of these dolls being found.
The poor couple that came upon this thing, they said the first night they had it in the house, they started having nightmares. And when they would wake up, they would be covered in scratches. And so then the next night, same thing happens. They have these horrifying nightmares. And then the next morning, covered in scratches. So that's when they called in the Warrens, and they came and got this thing.
They are literally quoted as saying, "Take this doll, please take it. Get it out." It was like, "Oh, what's going on?" I was like, "No, go."
Right?
Because see, they got it at a thrift store, and it was sold to them as some kind of like Victorian doll that was like broken.
Yeah. And that's the
This thing has nails coming out of its fucking shoulder.
And the mouth is like always, it's in pretty much like frozen in a screen, what it looks like. And it has like beady eyes. No! I would not buy that thing.
Now, Amanda talked about the Halloween masks earlier, but they also have mannequins throughout this museum in different costumes and different things. A lot of them showing different robes that would have been used in satanic rituals. One of them being a bride whose throat was slashed. But one of the more famous ones is actually this really ugly witch that Ed has standing next to the bride now in more recent tour videos. And her name is Anna Karenina, and she is a local witch from Connecticut, and that is why she is there.
She was, whew, demanding. Because the farmers were scared of her, right? And she would demand, like, bring me a hen, or I'm gonna curse you. So the farmers she was like the early form of a bully.
Yeah. One of the really cool parts of this museum is actually the little setup that they have where Ed's office is, because it contains all 3,000 cases that Ed and Lorraine worked on. And they have a little silhouette of Ed cut out. And the windows that you see the silhouette through are actually from a haunted house that Ed and Lorraine worked on for one of their cases. It's a really neat little memento, but in there lies the chair that apparently Annabelle likes to sit in.
Right. They're a cute couple.
They are a cute couple.
When you actually like watch videos of them together, they look like they love each other.
There's also a satanic altar that is in there that's a very terrifying little thing, and it's about the size of a shoebox, but it's not a shoebox, it's like a tiered platform. And all around it are these animal skulls. And on top of the altar is a bride and groom picture that has a giant pin through the face of the bride. And this altar is actually tied to an incident where a man and this woman got married. And apparently he had a jealous lover who was not very happy with the wife and created this altar. And sometime after they had gotten married, they were driving down the road and some kind of obstruction appeared in the roadway, causing him to like swerve. It said like a giant brick wall just appeared in the middle of the road. And so he swerved and hit some tree, and it killed the woman, and he survived. But Ed determined that it was crystalmancy, and that a wall was cast on the screen of the windshield, making it look like something was in the road, causing him to have the accident, therefore bringing the altar into play. Just a sad little story. And then I found this random little nugget of history. I didn't see this on any of the videos that I had watched, but randomly somebody had posted one of their Instagram pictures of going through the Warren Museum, and it showed that they had a brick from the Borley Rectory, which is known as the most haunted house in England. This house was built in 1863 and has the most sordid history of any land I've heard from Britain. Okay. So, in 1863, this priest by the name of Henry Bull builds this rectory. It's 3 floors and has 20 rooms, and there's tunnels underneath this thing all over the place. Many people are like, why the fuck did you need so many tunnels? As people started living on this property, they noticed things like a phantom nun appearing on the property, headless man, a lady in white. Henry Bull himself from 1863 was known to be there. Phantom coaches would pull up. And when you start to do some history and dig into the research of this land, there was an old monastery on this land. And in the 13th century, a monk and a young nun were both charged and killed because they were trying to elope because they were in love. The monk was hung in the square of the monastery, and the nun was actually bricked into the building where she died in solitude. Well, time passes, and that building is like demolished, and then they build up a new building on top of that, and then all of these spirits start arriving. Well, Harry Price was a paranormal investigator that rented the house for like a year's time so that he could do some researching, and he's actually the guy that gives us the basic first ghost kit, which included a tape measure, still photography, remote controlled cameras, a fingerprinting kit, and portable phones so that you can keep in contact with your different investigators.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be Harry Price that would go back to the previous owners, everyone else that had lived there, to gather a paranormal portfolio. And by far one of the worst things that happened would be the Foster family, specifically Mary Ann, who would experience the most traumatic experiences with the spirits on the property. She would see the nun, she would see the headless man, she would have interactions with spirits where they would throw things at her, slap her. She was actually suffocated once in the night. And then she started receiving physical notes from the spirits of the home. Like, you can look this up and you'll see the handwritten notes that appear. A lot of them are illegible, but two of them stand out. One of them being the more prominent one, and it says, "Mary Ann, please help get." It's during the time that the Fosters have this house that a premonition was made. They had a seance in 1935 to see if they could commune with the spirits of the house. And the spirit predicted that the house would burn that very night and that the bones of the nun would be discovered. Well, the house didn't burn down that very night, but everybody was freaked out and thought it was going to. But several months later, the owner of the house was like messing around with an oil lantern, and it like exploded and burned the house, making it an irreparable state. And that was in 1938. And it was officially demolished in 1944. At that time, there was an investigation led on one of the basement tunnels, and the bones of a young female were discovered and moved to the church graveyard. It said that all the spirits that resided at the rectory after the demolishment moved over to the church that is now a haunted church. But the Warren, what I found really fascinating about this whole rectory situation is that the Warrens are known to have visited this site over 24 different times. It's mentioned in one of their Seekers of the Supernatural episodes, and I think it was like a fan favorite for Lorraine. She talked about capturing a lot of different activity, not only at this site, but in different parts of London around the area.
Lastly, we're going to talk about the Necronomicon. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, I mean, they have a whole lot of books in the museum, a lot of Ed's books, and a lot of different spell books, but this is one that stands out specifically in some of the interviews Ed gives while touring his museum.
Yes. And
it's the Necronomicon.
Yeah. And he pointed it out and was talking about how it is to never open it, because if you open, anyone who opens it, horrible things will happen to them. There's evil spells in it. He called it the book of shadows. And he said, never open it because horrible things will happen to you. The thing about the Necronomicon is later it turned out that it's fake. It's fiction. Um, it was pretty much created by H.P. Lovecraft to talk about bizarre monsters, mythology, all this other things. It was written back, I think, in the 70s. And A Book of Shadows is actually a spell book used by Wiccans, so it's most often used for, white magic and good things. People kind of point to this as to call the Warrens kind of fakers because they say, oh, well, if you're a demonologist, wouldn't you know that this isn't real? Or um, saying, well, no, look, all this stuff in there must be fake because the Necronomicon is fake. But I think when they received the Necronomicon, they didn't know it was fake. I don't think anyone knew it was fake. I think it came out much later that this thing wasn't real.
Right. And it is a convincing looking thing. I mean, calling it a Book of Shadows is a little bit different. But to Ed, who was a Catholic demonologist, maybe it didn't look any different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Apart from these spooky objects that we've talked about, there's also a lot of Halloween decorations. Like on the walk down to the actual museum, there's this hallway where these dogs are barking, and it's said to try and be like the Hounds of Baskerville. But it was crazy. And in some of them, the curator of the museum turns on this child's religious choir music, which is just daunting to listen to and watch as all these demonic little possessions float around this room.
But I think, wasn't Ed a big fan of Halloween?
That's the thing. That's how this whole museum started. People would give Ed Halloween things, and Ed would collect Halloween things. I understand. I do the same fucking thing. One of my favorite possessions is a little tree that when you click it, it does the Addams Family theme song, except it sings about trick-or-treating. And I have a Thailand demon mask in my office and fucking newspapers about the Mothman. But it developed into an actual museum because of the things they would bring back from investigation that they thought were too dangerous to release into the public.
Yeah. And they say it's the biggest museum of its kind like this.
Yeah, and like Amanda said, Tony Spira goes to say at length that it is the most haunted area in the world.
I mean, he says
at length.
I watched a 9-minute video. He probably said it 25 times. But as we said before, Dakota's mentioned it. Lorraine, when she passes away, she wants all of that stuff taken to the Vatican.
Yeah, that's her final wish, is that all of it will be taken to the Vatican and never released into the public. Mm-hmm. Because think about this. I watched a video today that begged the question, what if Annabelle escapes? I mean, at any moment, those charms, say Lorraine passes away and those charms break. And Annabelle gets loose. How easy would it be for a demon to rejoin the human population?
I don't really understand why I picked the doll in the first place. But
that's fair.
I just feel like that was such an extra step. Like, why not just go for the human to start? Now you're stuck in the doll because you were too slow, Joe. Let me stop.
Don't say that, bitch. Annabelle's gonna come knocking on your door.
Yeah, she'd be like, bitch, you talking shit? I'd be like, sorry, Annabelle.
It is important to note, though, Lorraine states in a lot of her interviews, people ask her, what keeps you safe? Why do you have all this haunted shit in your basement? And Lorraine and Tony and Ed all go on record to state that your faith is your protector. They're very big Catholics. They're very big on demonology and believing that faith will guide and protect them. Mm-hmm. But probably the scariest thing for me was listening to Lorraine's pet rooster cock-a-doodle-doo while everyone's trying to go down into this spooky-ass museum. It was terrifying. All in all, once they get that thing open, I definitely want to go see it. I don't think I should even want to be in the room with it, but I do want to be. I do. I want to be in it.
But at least somebody has it. Like, someone who is trying to protect us has it.
Exactly.
It's not just floating out in the world.
And they are not the only paranormal museum or occult museum out there.
Mm-hmm.
They're just one of the most famous. Look into your own town and see if you have your local one. I know there's one in Nebraska that's like the Museum of Shadows. That's really cool.
I think that Ghost Hunter guy has one now, too. Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures in Vegas. I think he has one.
I mean, Myrtle's is technically a paranormal museum, too. Plantation?
Yeah, no. This is random, and we don't have to use this or anything. But I looked up haunted houses near me, just trying to see if I could find a haunted house, and Loretto Chapel was on there.
That's awesome.
We were top rated. We were top rated haunted house in Santa Fe, so I'm just gonna say that.
There you go. Little local plug right there.
My boss loved it too. She thought it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Right. But yeah, they're around.
Next week, join us when we take on Halloween. We're actually going to be releasing our episode early on Halloween.
Yeah.
So be prepared for that. Woot woot. You get it 2 days early on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about how Halloween came to be here in America. We're going to talk about Samhain, where Halloween came from, and bring you some of our favorite spooky stories from the lore of Hallows Eve. Why?
You going to say Halloween? You have to be so fancy.
I said Halloween. I said Halloween, Samhain. I wanted to get them all in there.
Sorry, I'm playing with you. I'm excited.
Woo!
All right, guys.
If you like what you hear, please follow us on Facebook at Encounters of Paranormal Experience. You can find us on Instagram at Encounters of Paranormal. Consider leaving a rating and review on iTunes. Please. Thank you to all of you that are doing so.
Yes, thank you.
And until next week, I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
Stay informed.
All right.